You're listening to The Invisible Addiction, a podcast investigating problem gambling.
At worst, I had 27 different payday loans where you'd go to work, you'd actually look at your interest by the end of the day and it'd be going up quicker than you could earn money from your job. It became something that you felt like you controlled, but actually, was I in control? It's the 4 o'clock in the morning alarm that used to wake me up every payday was the reason that I had no money by 8 o'clock in the morning. It's not a form of entertainment once it becomes an addiction.
Okay, so joining us on the other end of the line today is Danny Cheetham from Stockport, Greater Manchester. He's a former radio DJ on Gadio radio station in Manchester. He's also campaigned for payday loans, and I'm hugely excited. He's given up his time today to share his gambling addiction story with us. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce the one, the only, Mr. Danny Cheetham. Danny, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, and yourself. Good to get on here at last and have a bit of a rant about the current situations that we're all going through, eh?
Yeah. I know we've been chatting quite a lot on Messenger, and it's just quite nice to kind of finally get down to it, really. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll. I just want to kind of pick your brains, really, and obviously, it'd be great to share your gambling addiction story with the listeners today. But also, move the conversation on and to kind of hear your thoughts on the future and maybe how we can kind of make positive change, as it were. So, I mean, just because I'm being nosy and because I'm a bit, quite interested, could you just tell us maybe a bit more about your background and experience? Maybe touch upon the radio experience as well.
Yeah, well, that was way before I even put my first bet on. So, teenager, I spotted in the Manchester paper there was this advert for a news station that was starting up, and they was looking for people to be part of this sort of first wave of it. And so there was a small group of us. I went along, thought, oh God, what's this going to be like? Spoke to the two guys starting it. Next thing you know, I was there, and there's a group of us, and we get told that we've got a 28-day license to go on air for the very first time. Find out then I'm being given the brunch show. So I'm now 15, and I'm being told I've got my own radio show, 10 till 2 every day. I was a lot camp about then. I was going through this phase when I loved pop music and everything. So I fried off the idea that I was being given my own show just to go on air and talk absolute rubbish about anything. Play a bit of Kylie, play whatever I wanted. It was just a dream job for me at the time, and I loved it.
Oh, sounds amazing, to be fair. I mean,
it was great fun. Yeah. There you go. Here's a funny one for you. On Mother's Day, we was on air once. I got to bring my mum in and the producer's mum, and basically we let them take over the show. And I was having all sorts of stories as me growing up as a kid, being told on the radio live by my mum, and I couldn't do a thing about it. So it was the best experience ever. Absolutely loved it.
That sounds amazing. And am I right saying that you co-hosted with Rowetta from Happy Mondays?
Yeah, so Rowetta was actually on the X Factor back then, and she came third in the very first series, so I was a huge fan of hers. Invited her in as a guest initially. She came in, we're in this little pop-up studio that we had in like the middle of Manchester in the gay village above a bar. She came in, sang on the radio right in front of me. I was mesmerised. I couldn't believe I'd managed to get this to happen. So before you knew it, she came back more and more, and she just spiraled from there and got on with her really well. Some of the stories about Manchester and just the Manchester life. I don't know if you've what it's like with Mankey. It's a bit different. Everyone's a little bit of a party. It's a bit of a party central. So she lived and breathed that throughout the 90s. So it was just a great chance to get to work with her, get to know her, and she's still a really good friend to this day.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. What I was going to say, I don't know if you've seen it, but on YouTube, I think Bez, and I'm really sorry. Is it Bez and is it Gaz, the other guy from Happy Mondays? I can never. Bez.
Bez and I forgot his name now.
Sean Ryder. There we go. Sean Ryder. There we
Ryder.
go. I got it. They've got their own YouTube channel going now, and it's quite funny. They're quite good on Gogglebox. I don't know if you saw them on that. They're quite funny.
I saw him on that. It was actually really funny. Bez as well stood to be a councillor in Manchester. Well, for Salford originally.
Did he?
Yeah, he went for it. So, but if you ever get to go to Happy Mondays gig, it's one of the best nights ever. So you've got Sean, Rowetta, Bez still dancing with maracas. It's just great 90s vibes. Can't beat it. Was too young to go partying then, so I'll catch up now.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, that whole kind of the Manchester scene. I mean, I played the drums and playing a kind of cover band, wedding band, and yeah, I mean, half the stuff we do is Oasis, to be fair. So yeah, that kind of whole scene is great. It's great. Yeah, I mean, obviously we're on a gambling addiction podcast, but I would love to talk to you more about the whole radio experience. But I don't know, maybe could you tell us a bit more about the whole payday loan campaign? I mean, we kind of just briefly spoke about it before we went on air, and for the listeners' benefit, I missed this off on the research. So yeah, could you just kind of tell us a little bit more about how that kind of came about?
Yeah, so before I really understood my gambling problem, so to speak. I always used to think I controlled it myself, so that was always like a side effect. I
Mm,
used to think I gambled because of debt, and I was terrible from like my 18th birthday, taking out payday loans. And the worst, I had 27 different payday loans where you'd go to work, you'd actually look at your interest by the end of the day, and it'd be going up quicker than you could earn money from your job.
mm,
And it was just like mind blowing, the fact that you'd log on in the morning, you'd have £100 here, £100 there. Before you knew it, you'd look later on there, each one's £120 because it's gone up that much, because it's 900 and some percent interest, 1,200% APR. There was just no control over it.
mm,
And that then used to feed my whole sort of position. I was like, my debt's growing quicker than I can work. Then that's when the gambling was also there, because I was like, one big win, and that's going to be my way to get back to zero. It
mm,
wasn't even to get to a house, to get to a car. It was just to get to zero. That was the goal.
mm,
And it's such a crazy thing that you used to be able to just sit there, go on your phone, apply for a loan, it'd be in your bank in 10 minutes. You wouldn't speak to a person, you wouldn't send off a bank statement. You just literally filled out form after form after form online. And then eventually one would accept you, they'd give you £200. A week later, they'd give you another £200 of the same company. It
mm,
just got so spiraled out of control. There was just no way to stop it.
mm,
So that then really set me off then, because it is predatory lending. Back
mm,
then there was no restrictions on it. You could take out 10 loans, there was no checks. They just wanted to throw money at you.
mm, mm, mm. Yeah, it's wow. Yeah, I mean, it's something that you hear a lot from gambling addiction stories. Is like, I include myself in this, but the whole chasing your losses. You're gambling to get out of debt, and then it's this vicious cycle because you're in debt because of the gambling, but you want to get out of debt to gamble. It's
Yeah,
just you
it's
just
crazy.
yeah.
I used to think my only way of getting out of debt was from a big win. That was what I used to convince myself was my reason to gamble. Didn't even
Mm,
think about the fact that these games were inducing you to come back in. The spins were getting quicker, the stakes were getting high. All these little tiny things that we all know now, looking back on it, didn't even come to mind then. I was just there staring at a screen to win enough to get out of debt. That's what
mm,
I used to convince myself I was there for. I wasn't there for the fun. I wasn't there because it was something I did once a week because I had a football team I liked. It was because I thought it's my only way.
mm,
But
mm,
but I didn't even used to think of questioning gambling though. Then back at this point, because I didn't see gambling as being the problem. I used to think payday lenders were the bad guys.
mm,
So I used to go on this bit of a, I wouldn't say crusade, but I went on a mission to try and stop them, because I used to write letters to payday lenders to saying, I've got an addiction, I've got this problem, but you're still lending me more money.
mm,
So I ended up working with this campaign we did a few years ago called Debt Hacker. And
mm,
basically, they asked, could they use my story to basically get a bit of a campaign going to get MPs to bring it up and to try and get the law changed.
mm, mm,
It it spiraled. I noticed one day there was 23,000 people had all sent a letter about my stories to MPs, and then MPs were posting letters back about it.
Jeez.
Yes, these MPs are all posting letters back to talk about how bad it was and saying they empathise with the situation, and then it just kept going. And then eventually the actual legislation got changed, and now a payday lender cannot charge you more than the actual loan. So
Wow.
it's still a huge amount of money, but if you took out £100 loan, even if you had to repay that over a year, the most they could charge in interest is £100. That is what the rule is now. And that is a game changer for so many reasons, because there is times that people need a payday loan. There is really extreme circumstances
Mm,
that
mm,
somebody's in a position they need money and it's a cry for help. but to know they're not going to be made into a vulnerable person and charged £400-500 for borrowing £100 because the car broke and they can't get to work, or there's so many different scenarios where there is a gap for that type of service. Obviously, I'm not condoning it. I don't think anyone should get a payday loan, but there's always going to be that type of lender there. So now that they're not seen as being as like gambling operators are now, they're not up to their own free reign. They can't abuse people. They can't take their money. They can't do everything the same as what we see now in the gambling world. It's quite scary when you start looking at the differences between the two industries and how similar their tactics are.
So Danny, just to clarify, so if someone's borrowing £100, they only have to pay back the £100, or they pay back the £100 plus another £100 in interest.
Sorry, yeah. So if you borrowed £100 and you borrowed it for 2 weeks, you might only pay 120 back. But if you couldn't pay it back, the most it would ever get up to would be the loan plus the loan value again in interest.
I see.
So £100 loan, they could only charge you £100 for lending that, for example.
Wow.
Which is still a lot of money, but if someone's in a time of crisis, sometimes to know things aren't going to get worse and they're not just going to keep spiraling and spiraling, might just give them that time to breathe and to get the life back on track without turning into something like gambling.
I mean, wow. Yeah, you certainly kept this one quiet. I mean, that's 23,000 people. I mean, that's incredible. So was it like an online campaign and things like that, and a petition and stuff?
Yeah, well, it started off originally. I actually got asked to do an article for the Daily Mail about it. To this day, I've always regretted doing that because they tried to spin the story and make it into a bit of a scandal. So I walked into the office, and on every single PC in the office where I worked, I saw my face and a story saying £100 student debt turned into this amount, and they made it into a big story like I was a really daft person for taking out that first loan. And that's what gave me the bit of the spark that things had to change. There was still that stigma with it that you was the daft person for crying out for help and taking out a loan in the first place. And it was like, how does this happen that someone, the most vulnerable people, or the people who can't get finance elsewhere, have took this loan out, and somehow they're being seen as being daft for getting something they need? If that's your only option, some people are going to turn to it. You can't avoid that, can you? Whilst there's a company there and they're waving money at someone who's got nothing and they know they can get this loan easily, they're going to keep taking it. So that attitude had to change. And I think we have gone past that point now. Look, Wonga, all of these other big lenders have all shut down because everyone started to know their rights. Things like by definition, we could link this with gambling in so many ways. It's like if you took a loan out and you missed 2 payments, so you rolled it over twice, that loan is by definition unaffordable. They should have gave it you because you could afford to repay it, and because you couldn't, they shouldn't have given you that money in the first place. So loads of people were getting their interest back, were getting these loans wiped off because they just weren't done correctly. These companies didn't do the correct checks to check it was affordable. And there's so many similarities with the way that these lenders used to give money out to the way gambling operators take people's money now when they're almost vulnerable, or they're the people that are struggling most.
Wow. So how would you how would you campaign, or how would you change the gambling side of things? Do you see complete parallels, or is it slightly different?
So for gambling, I can go on a soapbox about this all day. There's so many parallels to all of these things that have changed in our past. So the most recent one we look at in the news this week alone, or we've seen about fatty foods and sugar foods, the advertising ban and all of this, and people understand that, and people can associate that. A lot of people binge it, a lot of people are getting kids unhealthy and all of this, but then they can get an advert ban like that out of nowhere. We've got gambling operators then who are still getting fines and penalties for putting rabbits in TV adverts and advertising towards kids. Got mobile apps where a kid can spin at a slot machine, but because they're not taking real cash out, it's not seen as being a bad thing. There's so many things the gambling industry get away with that all of these others don't. Look at smoking. Used to sponsor Formula 1 20 years ago. You'd see all your racing drivers with Marlboro or another brand wrote across the chest. If someone told you now that a football player is going to run out with a cigarette brand on the chest, you'd hear people horrified instantly. They just wouldn't let it happen. Or a McDonald's logo on your favourite player. you just wouldn't see all of this happening, which is just that thing that the gambling industry seems to be the last one that's getting away with all these predatory ways of doing things.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
definitely.
can really get on a rant about some of it. It's just there's so many different things that the gambling industry do, and you just think if there was that responsible or that willing to change, why are they waiting to be told? And they claim they're going to do their own changes, but there's so many other industries that have been through it: payday loans, sugary foods, smoking. All of this has been done before, so why is it such a battle to get to this same point as where everyone else is already?
Very good, very good point. I mean, you only have to look over now in America where there, I mean, where it's all kind of expanding, where it's getting legalized online betting, and it's just, you left scratching your head thinking, oh my goodness, is this just a bad dream? Because I mean, we've had it bad here for the last, X amount of years since, fixed odds betting terminals came about. Obviously, online betting where it's, carried around in your pocket. On your mobile, you can bet wherever you like. But yeah, I mean, you look over in America now and you think, oh my goodness,
It's just crazy. Even if you look here, so the type of gambling I did is probably different to the 18-year-old that's going online to bet now. They're being presented with in-play odds, a slot machine at the same time, a
Mm,
virtual sports race. They're being presented with 3 or 4 different streams of gambling on one web page. Whereas even 3, 4, 5 years ago, it was you either put a bet on a live sport, you went on a slot machine. You didn't I can't even say the word. You didn't play all of these games at once together. So
mm,
it's different again. Then I look at my parents. That they probably didn't sit there and put a bet in the middle of a football match. They probably
mm,
had to go to a pub or a casino to put a slot machine spin on. Everything changes so much between each generation, and somehow we just sit back and have let it get to this point now that we're having to actually fight to try and bring things back in line.
mm,
And what everyone's asking for isn't extreme. To have a company that provides a service to care and to actually have things done correctly and to open up for their mistakes and be willing to change is such a battle, and it shouldn't be at all.
mm, mm. I
It,
mean, yeah. Sorry, carry on. Carry on. I interrupted you there.
no, I can really get. It's just so bizarre that we have this industry where people still say it's a social thing, it's a fun thing. Maybe it was 20, 30 years ago. Your grandparents might have gone down to the local bookmakers and stood there all day putting 20p bets on again and again, which is similar to what someone does on the slot machine now, but there was in an environment around people.
Mm, mm.
It was just a different way. It wasn't the same.
Yeah, yeah. It's mad. I mean, I don't want to call them out, but I've got. Should we just say I know a couple of people that bet heavily on their mobile. And yeah, they don't consider themselves. I don't think they can. I think the joke is that there's like, oh, I've got a problem, but it's like when you're betting on obscure games, football games, early in the morning, and betting on these games that you have no clue about. Is that fun? Is it married in with a mobile phone addiction? Like the dopamine hits. Something to do. I just think it's a really dangerous concoction. Online betting with apps and the use of mobile phones.
So I remember now when I used to go on a properties, I used to have my lunch break at work. I'd know exactly what time it was. I'd ask to go on my lunch half an hour before everyone else. I'd make up an excuse saying I had to get to the post office before the queue to post something, or I'd find a reason that I needed to be out before everyone else because I knew the bookmakers that was near work only had 4 machines. So I had to get in before everyone else. It took me about 8, 9 minutes to get there. This is how calculated it used to be. I used to know that leaving my desk, I'd have to run to get there to get on this machine. Some days, if it was a day that I felt like I had money, I'd have my phone in one hand, spinning a slot machine online and spinning a slot on the screen. I'd go in with my plan in my head, thinking, right, okay, let's get up to this amount and walk away.
Mm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
just never ever happened. The amount of times that I used to walk out of there on what I would call a good day with a slip in my hand, thinking I've got some money, and then before you knew it, I'd be then counting down the seconds and the minutes until the end of the day to go back in with the intention of cashing that slip in, but instead would then spend a lot plus more money. And then you'd walk out of there on the bus on the way home. You'd be on your phone filling out forms to get another loan because you'd realise you'd spent every penny you've got and you've somehow got to get to work tomorrow. It would be the same cycle, and everything was just constant. It was the ease of access, the amount of different ways you could do it. it became something that you felt like you controlled, but actually, was I in control? Just because I knew it took me 8 minutes to run there doesn't mean that I was clever because I knew how to get there before the next guy. It meant that machine was calling my name and I had no choice but to get there.
It's crazy, isn't it? The lengths that you would go to put a bet on. Yeah, I mean, were you? It's the question, isn't it? Were you in control, or was the gambling in control of you? It's
I think for those first 20 seconds when you walk through those doors, those times it used to go into bookmakers, everyone thinks they're in control. You think, I'm going in with £100 to spend. I'm going in just to try and win an extra £100, or I'm going in just to put a bet on something because your favourite sports team's playing that day. You go in with every intention that's right. And then before you know it, you've been to the counter in the shop 6 times to put another £100 on your card on that same machine. And you're walking out of there going, what moment did it all happen? Because it's only 40 minutes ago you walked in and you knew you had money in the bank, and you're walking out with nothing again.
Oh, it's mad, isn't it? It's absolutely mad. I mean, I can relate a lot to what you've just said there, Danny, because yeah, there were times when I, would go in similarly, and you go, right, I've got 50 quid. I want to make some money. It got to the point because I was in so much debt. I mean, gambling. I view gambling as a way to make money. I thought at one point I was so deluded I thought I could make it a job, which was just ridiculous. But yeah, there'd be times I'd be playing the roulette machine in the bookies, and I'd be on a handful of occasions. My number would come out maybe the first couple of spins, and that was always the worst because I was like, I kind of was stumbling because I was like, well, what am I going to do now? Like I've surpassed the target that I said I was going to come in to make, but I would carry on. I'll just carry on betting,
I remember now that when I was going, oh God, I try and describe it because I don't want it to make it sound like it was a good experience, because looking back, it's not. But at the time, I used to be like ruthless on the sort of. I used to be on the slot machines all the time. So when you used to get like a £10 payout or a £2 win, I used to go on the gamble option and I'd have in my head a code, I'd plan out ahead like red, red, black, black, red, and I'd just hit the buttons as quick as I could on the screen. And sometimes that £2 would then turn into a £200 win before you knew it. And I used to have the guy in the shop, and I won't say what type of shop it was or anything, but he used to come over to me. He used to work there, and he used to think I used to know something about the system. He used to egg me on, speak to me. He'd act like he's my friend, and he'd see me up on the machine. I'd be up like a considerable amount of money by some point, and then it would just take a bad 10 minutes of thinking, right, okay, got to keep going, got to get back up to that same number, my highest number. And you'd just be so absorbed of it. You'd be putting ruthless numbers on like £100 on a spin. The most you can win is £500. I mean, it's 5 to 1 chance, and all of these things that you do in the moment because you think it gives you a better chance of doing it, or you can gamble that number and get it a bit higher. It's just the thrill of it takes over. Them lights flash in a certain way, the noises the machine makes, that everything in that environment is made to keep you staring at that screen.
Yeah, I remember going, and you'd be in the fixed op betting terminals, and I'd be with my mate. I go quite a lot with my mate, and sometimes we'd look, and almost if we were queuing up for someone to get off the fixed op betting terminals, or even if I was just on my own, I would look across, peer over the shoulder, and go, "Oh my God!" You'd be watching them, and you'd be going, "Oh, they've just had a massive win. They're on. They've got a massive credit," and you're just thinking, "Oh, this guy's an idiot. He just needs to walk. He just needs to walk." And yeah, when it came to my turn, I was just as bad. So.
You used to even be, you'd see the same faces in some of these. I used to think I was a visitor or a tourist to a branch. Like I'd go in the one in Manchester City Centre, and it wouldn't be my regular. I wouldn't be alone. But then I'd look around and I'd recognise every face in there. But looking back on it now, was I not just a regular as well? Because if I recognise them, they probably recognise me. But I used to think I was different. I was going in there because I had an hour spare. I wasn't going there every day. But you'd go in 3 or 4 different branches and you'd see the same faces you've seen in all of them, and it'd be the same group of people across. Well, Manchester was terrible. There was literally about 30, 40 bookmakers within a half a mile square of the city centre of Manchester. You'd go into any of them, you'd recognise someone. It was just the norm. Wanted to walk up one street and see 4 branches from the same brand. What on the next corner, see another one, and you'd just think, I'll nip in, I'm in control, run out, get back on with your day, act like nothing's happened, but then the whole rest of the day you was fixated on getting back there again.
Oh
It
my
was such a
goodness.
strange thing. I
Yeah.
remember they got a coffee machine in one of them once, and it never lasted long because everyone used to stand in there and there was asking for drinks to be made, brought over to him, offered bags of crisps. All of this just to keep you stood there a bit longer, and you just
Mm,
think they know exactly what they're doing. They just want to make it so you don't leave that pod. Once you're in
mm,
that pod, you're not leaving that pod, so you've got nothing left in your hand.
It's interesting because I mean, I kind of agree, and I agree. I agree and disagree in a way, because obviously I agree that by handing out these gifts, as it were, even if it's just a machine coffee that is frankly doesn't even taste that nice, but because it's free, it's always it always tastes better. But packets of crisps or can of Coke or whatever it is, but then you build up. I certainly built up sometimes positive relationships with some of the bookies, because I'd sort of viewed them almost as like friendly, they're customer service assistants, they're there to make your experience nice. And I mean, it's a difficult one actually, because I've kind of corrected myself in a way, because actually that was more towards the end actually, of my addiction, when I was almost just going in to the bookies just to pass time with my friends.
But you say a good point though about the store staff. That we get this a lot, especially on the whole campaigning side of it. We blame a lot of people directly, so the store staff know better. Well, there is some obviously operators, and they have their staff that know what they're doing, but they are people at the end of the day. And I don't think anybody signs on a dotted line to go to a job to do it with bad intentions. They get told that's their job. So sometimes I think we focus sometimes on the wrong ways of looking at it. It's not the branch at the bottom of your street and the person stood in it. It's the big guy at the top or the big people. The further up the chain you get that are making that decision, that they turn a cold shoulder to you in the shop, even if you're struggling and losing money. Or there's so much more to it than the people that you see, and the people that a lot of people give the grief to. I've seen people threaten people in stores in the past, and you just think they're there to get a job.
So Danny, I mean, would you like to kind of? I mean, I'm quite happy to kind of continue just chatting like this. But I mean, do you want to maybe kick off and talk about how you started betting, and maybe a little bit more about your story?
Yeah. So the question that I always used to remember that I used to get asked and I could never give a proper answer to is, when did I start gambling? Because I always remember back, and I always think when I was a kid growing up, things like the Grand National was a family event. My mum would put a finger buffet, as she used to call it, out. You'd all pick a name in the paper. You'd sit around the TV. You'd all watch it together, and you'd do it as a family event. And I think was that then me getting a feel for it. I remember the disappointment. Everyone else used to get on with it day, even as a kid, and I'd be thinking, should have picked that horse, should have got that name. I was a young kid, and I was already thinking about odds and trying to think about a way to win money. I wasn't watching it because it was fun. And then it's the same with family holidays growing up. I always remember my little sister used to come with me. We'd both get given spends at the start of the day to go to like the campsites, arcade. I'd be straight to the 5p slots, spinning them to win a £5 jackpot. My money would be gone in half an hour. The entire money that's supposed to last me a night. Then I'd be kind of going after my sister then to get her money just to keep going.
It's mad.
And I remember it now, and I think I was a kid then. I was innocent. I was there to have fun. And somehow I was already getting those feelings that I should be staring at a machine to spin a wheel whilst on holiday, because that's the excitement, not the fact they've got go-karts that you can go out on, bikes, a swimming pool, all the rest. I was more interested in getting my £5 a day spends to get in that arcade and spin a slot. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. Like, I think they've just released a stat actually that's gone up. I mean, it was 55,000 young people, like between 11 and 16, addicted to gambling, but I think that's now gone up to 61,000 from a YouGov poll. But I mean, at that young age, it's interesting speaking to so many people actually say very similar things. Again, myself included, that the arcades, it was just something about them, just the flashing lights, the 2p machines, but like money orientated as well. I was always that kid at school that there's always one that goes and sort of stocks up in chocolate bars and sells them for profit,
Yeah. Yeah,
That was me. But
yeah, definitely. It was all about the money. It was
yeah,
never about the fun or anything else.
yeah,
You had a plan in your head.
yeah, yeah.
But I even though at the same time as saying that, I'm glad I'm not a kid now. It's a different world now. I remember going, my nephew and niece go to like Blackpool, we go for a family event, go into the arcade with them because, as everyone says, they're kids. Kids go to arcades. Kids play. There's still that British culture, especially where it's a norm to go in an arcade as a kid. But I remember walking in there and thinking, what type of a place is it now? They've got games where they hit a button to throw a ball to land on a number to win enough tickets to match that number. They've got games where it's all looks like a roulette wheel to me. They've got token-based slot machines where they've got a slot machine that spins at the same time as a horse racing at the top, and the first one to the end wins more tokens than the second. And all of this is happening, and I'm saying, where's the racing car game, or where's the air hockey table? Where's all of that? Why do you have to win 10,000 tokens to get a toy at the counter before you can go home? When did that change?
Yeah, no, it's nuts. I mean, I did a vlog, lived down here in Southsea, Portsmouth, on the coast, and went to an arcade, and I recorded it for a vlog. But I was just astounded. Very similar story, where I was like, well, hang on, what's happened to all the the Tekken 2 games and the drive and racing games and stuff? I mean, sure enough, there's a few of them in there, but there was fruit machines. The big claw that you grab the toys. The controls on it were fruit machine controls. It was like little kind of fruit machines for kids, like a black Batman themed £5 jackpot. I'm like, I just fail to see the logic. Like, how am I just going mad, or is that just completely ridiculous? I'm going off on a rant now, Danny.
No, but it's a really strange one, because if you speak about it too much, a lot of the people you speak to will look at you like it's something that's just the norm, and they don't quite grasp the effect of it. It's like, if you pick up your phone now and you go into the app store and whatever phone you've got and look at the chart, and then look at the top game that's on there, it's a game where people are building a village by spinning a slot machine. It's a PG-12 game, 100 million downloads. So you've got kids. I know my niece plays it, and I'm not there to tell her what to do. That's up to her mum to do, etc. I don't want to be that one who's, do you know what I mean? It's such an awkward position to be in. I can't tell her that's wrong to play. It's a PG-12 game on a phone, where all you do is you sit there and you spin a slot machine to build your village, to attack another village, but then they can buy virtual money to spin that slot a few more times, and that's not seen as gambling, even though they're paying to spin. And I'm like, where does this logic stop? Even on the back of that, it gets even worse. They've got the virtual chip poker that you see everyone play on Facebook and on the phones.
Right.
And I know friends that have spent hundreds buying virtual chips to play at virtual tables on the phone, a game of poker to win 1 billion chips. It's all amplified, so they'll win 1 billion, which would never win in real life, which then gives them that misconcerted sort of view about gambling, thinking you win the big money. Is that just drip feeding them into the world when they think everyone's going to be a millionaire, everyone's going to win loads of money? It just warps everything, and I think there's a big thing that needs to happen to stop any type of virtual currency sort of gambling as well, because there's just far too many loopholes that kids can play. People can get this misconstrued attitude for gambling. It's just not a good place to be at all.
It's interesting you say that. I was speaking to my brother recently, my youngest brother, and was chatting to him obviously about the invisible addiction and the whole kind of project and things. And we were chatting about loot boxes on FIFA and such like. I mean, I'm sort of not really the biggest computer game player, and he's big on his FIFA. And I sort of just quizzed him. I sort of said, "Could you tell me more about loot boxes and such like?" And basically, he later revealed that he was like, "Oh, actually, yeah, I remember spending about 100 quid on my dad, on Dad's credit card, just sort of sly, off the cuff." And I mean, loot boxes. I'm not overly familiar, but from what he said, I think it's something like. Do you remember like the old Panini stickers you get in the news agents for your book and stuff. And he said I think it's a bit like that, where you get a pack for potential players for your team. And obviously you've got better rated players, Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, and obviously you've got not so good rated players. And he said that, obviously it's just completely pot luck for every pack that you get. But the problem is that there's people online on YouTubers and such recording themselves opening these packs, and they're maybe affiliated and stuff, and with the companies, and paid for the sponsorships and to kind of almost advertise. And he said there's actually people people are being paid to show what obviously this amazing pack of cards, but the reality is it's not going to be like that. And actually there's now kids who are getting videos of themselves trashing the TV, trashing the room, because they film themselves doing a reaction video to the packs that they get, and of course it's nothing like what they see. It's just mad.
But even what you said there makes me, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like the fact if he spent £100, and not him personally, if anyone spent £100, and they're saying it's because they love the sport or they love the game, FIFA and all the rest, you could have gone to your local football team play, bought the kit, done all the rest with that same £100, and then you've got this industry saying that they're the lifeline between English sports and like football is funded because of the teams need us, and you get all of this sort of mentor that the league would collapse. But I'm thinking, hold on a minute, if everyone's spending £100 each to gamble, and then that gives you enough to then sponsor them, if they're not gambling with you, they've got that £100 left to spend on their favourite club. And there's such that warped concept that it's a dependent thing and sports won't survive without it. But you just think how much money people are losing on that gambling. People soon adapt. If the sponsor wasn't there on that kit and they wasn't spending it on that bet, they'd soon be finding ways to buy the latest merch from the club, and it just would all balance out. We don't need to have this attitude that it's a necessity that some of the leagues and some of the things in the UK need gambling money. Sorry, I can. It just gets me really wound up, especially because you've mentioned the FIFA game, and I just think the whole irony of it, that we've got a football game on your phone, that people are then paying for loot boxes. Within that game, they've already spent £50 to play, and before you know it, they spent £200 on a game because they're a football fan. And it's just all gets so misconstrued, and it's like, well, why don't you spend that same £200 to go and watch the game rather than buying a loot box just to get a T-shirt that's on your screen? That's marketing.
Yeah.
It's happened.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I was quite impressed, actually. I'm a drum teacher, and one of my students that I taught the other day, it was non-uniform day at the school, and she came in a West Ham top, and I didn't recognise. I knew it was West Ham, but I thought it was like a training kit, and I sort of asked her, and she said, "Oh, West Ham don't put football sponsors on their kids, their kids tops," which I thought was good. But it was quite concerning when she just mentioned the term Betway. I mean, she's only 8 or 9, and it was just, it's like hearing a kid talk about Marlboro cigarettes. It's like that. It didn't quite sit well with me, her mentioning a gambling company. It just, as a kid,
But there's something about that though. If a kid's wearing a kit without the sponsoring logo, but then knows they've got the kit without the logo, that's almost drawing more attention to the logo being on the other kit. So actually, it's not getting the end goal when we're supposed to be protecting the kids. It's highlighting the fact that the dad or the mum's top has got the logo on and theirs hasn't. So actually, it makes that logo stand out even more, and more questions get asked.
Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it? It's absolutely nuts. I mean,
it's just crazy.
Yeah, I think the kings of marketing, Paddy Power. I remember I was watching a Bournemouth game. I'm a Bournemouth fan for my sins, but they put their and I hate even talking about it because it's just free bloody marketing for them, But obviously, anyone listening to this, I'm sure, is or I would like to hope that is not going to go and gamble. But they on the perimeter boards, they deliberately put their logo upside down. So it's just that's another thing that really grates me anyway, just in general, is the perimeter boards, let alone with all, plastered with the gambling companies, but just the intrusion into the game. I mean, I'm now watching the game, but then I'm finding myself watching a stupid little small dog, for vitality or whatever. And I just can't help but be distracted. So
it's a strange time, especially now during lockdown, when you've got empty seats that are now covered by branded logos and everything else. And then at the same time, you've got people having to join to certain websites at some point to be able to watch their favourite team play.
Yeah.
It's just such a vice that is currently regulated wrong. It's not 20 years ago. The internet's here. They're being allowed to make their own rules up for a lot of it, or say that they're changing. But everything is still left up to them. Doesn't happen for any other industry out there. Tobacco, alcohol, now sugary foods. The fact that if you want to buy a can of Coke, that you want to buy a fizzy drink that's got sugar in, is going to cost you more because everyone's got the consensus that that's bad for you. But then at the same time, that same person could buy a can of Coke, pay more because it's got sugar in, but then can go to the Bookies and spend their entire wage. But then no one says that's wrong at the moment. No one batters an eyelid. It's just a strange time we're going through, that this attitude's slowly but surely changing, but people just don't see it the same as we do with the other vices that people have.
I am very worried about the whole lockdown situation. People being furloughed. People are out of jobs. We can't forget that people are, masses of unemployment at the moment, and if you're bored and you're locked up at home, one thing that you can turn to for escapism is gambling. And I just really, really worry about the effects of lockdown, and the number of people gambling, and therefore the number of people that have got problems with the gambling, and what that then can lead to. And I just think it's a complete utter mess, to be quite frank.
But the adverts don't help that message, because if someone's on lockdown on their own, you'll see a group of friends. One of them's put a bet on and they've all had a win. And, the whole attitude is it's social. To log on a website on your own, on your phone, sat in the front room with no one else around you, is somehow a social activity. And I just sorry. Yeah. I feel so animated on some of it that I'm just like, we're battling this for so long now just to get these changes that everyone else already has. And I just think, how much longer can it go on for? Why are we still having to prove that this thing that's no longer a sports match once a week, or going to the horse racing, or going to the dogs? It's now code that's pumped out, a new game every day, faster spins, flashing lights, everything else is now completely there in the palm of your hand on your phone screen. And somehow we're still not seeing the association that game has been made intentionally to be addictive. That game, they didn't turn around to the team of people at the operator and say, make me a game that people can play to win money, but sometimes lose money, but make sure they know when to stop. Their sheet will say, make this game so this person keeps spinning, make this person so they'll stake more, make the spin a bit faster, make it a bit more enticing, make the sound effects seem like they're going to win when they're not actually going to win. It's just like, on the back of that, it's like a near win on a virtual slot machine has been programmed to be a near win. It's been programmed to make you feel like you're about to win. The music building up, the spin slowing down, that's been done intentionally by someone to feel like you're about to win. So how is that ethical in itself, and how does that even work? It just, you think about it properly and you're thinking they're deliberately making people get up to that peak of excitement, get their endorphins going, get them excited about something, to then crash them down. And that was wrote by somebody in a script to do that. And that's when I get so on my soapbox and I can rant all day about it. It's been made to do that. It's not a natural event. It's not because your favourite player's nearly got near the goal and just missed the net. That game has been published and it's come out, it's gone past a team of testers, it's gone past a whole stream of people, and they've agreed that that game is acceptable to do. It's addiction by code.
So, well, the $1 million question then, Danny, is how would you make gambling safer in the future? What changes would you implement if you could?
Well, the first one is a gambling operator is still a financial service. It's still the same as equivalent of getting a loan or anything else, just the money's going the opposite way. You take a loan out from the bank, you know you've got to pay X amount back because you borrowed that money. An operator's saying, you give me this much money, there's a chance you're going to get this money back. And it's the same sort of thing, just the opposite side of the table. You put some money in, hope you're going to get it back. You buy a stock, you hope that company's going to do well to go up. So they need to have this attitude where you shouldn't be able to spend an entire wage in one go. You shouldn't be able to spend your loan money on a bet. It needs to be affordable, and it needs to be something that's reflected on each person individually, because £100 to me is a different £100 to you. And then my friend who's just lost his job, it's a different £100 to them. Everyone's not the same, and they just get away with saying affordability checks are done and all the rest, but they don't. It just doesn't work. Even when we say now £100 a month default stake limit, or default deposit limit, sorry, is what a lot of the people are saying it's going to be. But that £100 is a huge impact to some people and not to others. We've got to make sure that whatever we get these operators to do is going to last time, and make sure that we get the next generation so they gamble for fun, if that's what people want to happen. But no one should be in the position where they gamble more than they can afford. That just shouldn't happen.
For
Sorry,
sure.
I've gone right off on that one. Sorry.
Hey, no. It's
I get really frustrated. Gambling is a financial service. It's a bank, but the opposite way around. It's exactly the same principle. You get a loan, you know you got to pay more money back. You give it some money to a gambling place in the hope of getting a bit more back off them. It's the same sort of mentality. It's all to do with money. You get so much, you know it's going to cost you that from the bank. You put that much of a bet on, you've got a chance of getting that. It's just like, how can it be seen as something that's fun when people are doing it for a living? People are doing it because they don't have a choice. It's making billions. What was it that I saw today about one of the operators? Their 19th consecutive quarter that their income has gone up. 19 consecutive quarters. That's not even 19th month. That's 19 set of 3 months that it's gone up and up and up. But then at the same time, has the amount of customers gone up at the same rate, or is it the same amount of customers that are just spending more? Why don't they tell you that?
Yeah, good question, isn't it? Good question. Yeah, the stats have gone through the roof, really, haven't they? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, I think the important thing for me would be maybe the message that you get across to the gambler, as it were, like the intervention. I mean, I'm not too sure with yourself, but for me, the only time that I was anyone that intervened was a casino, I still to this day don't think it was any coincidence that I actually then self-excluded that day from all land-based casinos. So because it felt like the cat was out the bag, it felt like someone else knew my secret, and actually I did have a problem. So yeah, I think if better, stronger, more impactful. I think that's correct grammar, but more impactful wording, messaging to the gambler, I think for me is probably my biggest bugbear, actually.
Well, yeah, we're in a bit of a losing battle with that one at the moment. Whilst you've got some of the campaigns that come out that target, as they've tried to explain themselves, they target the people who don't have a gambling problem, who just need a bit of control. I'm like, well, how do you define that? Somebody's got to put a measure in to have a timeout or a maximum state. They've got a problem where they're not in full control. So how can we have messages where we're telling someone that your favourite wrestler is going to come and beat you up if you put a bet and drag you out the pub, and going, what? How does that work? So have we got an advert on the next minute showing a bouncer pulling someone away from the bar because they bought one more pint, saying you've had too much or you're going to get thrown out and punched? But no, it's okay that we can put a wrestler or a sporting figure out there to saying, don't put another bet on or we're going to come and get you. It's just, how on earth does that even messaging work?
Yeah, I was going to say, so that's the whole bet regret, isn't it?
Yeah,
sort of thing. Yeah, I did see that,
and really frustrated.
Yeah, no, quite rightly, to be honest with you, quite rightly.
Yeah, there's another one this week. They've put out a picture of an alarm clock saying set an alarm before you start betting so you know when to stop. But hold on a minute, it's the 4 o'clock in the morning alarm that used to wake me up every payday was the reason that I had no money by 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'm just like, so you're telling me people have to come along that aren't addicted to set an alarm to remind them to stop? Where's the error in that whole logic? If you put an alarm on to remind you to stop, you've got a problem, and we shouldn't be encouraging them to come back. You should be encouraging them to get help and not take a break. And some people just can't control that, and we shouldn't be allowing them to get mixed messages from so many different places.
It's weird, isn't it? I'm thinking of the analogy of like being at a bar or a pub and being told to set an alarm in an hour's time to stop drinking. But within that space of time, you can drink as much as you want. You can do what you want, and then as soon as that alarm goes off, you've got to the alarm's gone. I've got to leave the pub now. That it doesn't quite work like that. Well, where's the responsibility from the landlord or the person working there to get that message across? So
but then is it up to the landlord, is it up to the staff in that pub, or is it up to the people that are making that whole drink that you're drinking? It gets into this whole similar thing with gambling. We look at the figures you see there in front of you and we think it's their fault, but you think there's a big company behind this that are making lots of money, and everyone knows that they're part in this. And it's sometimes we target the wrong stream of people. We don't sit back and think of the bigger picture enough. It's like, so before I get going again, because I can get set off quite easily. We've got to look at people on our side of the fence, so to speak. So the people who want safer gambling or whatever the buzz term they want to put on it, want to protect people, want to save lives, they want to do all of this. We're all on the same side of a chessboard. We're all in the same game, that we want to get to this point that we can see something happen, whether it's a £2 max stake, £100 max deposit in a month, no TV advertising, but all of us have our own reason for being in that spot, and we're not always going to agree. Someone's going to say some piece of research that they've done gives them this outcome, and another one's going to say this piece of research gives them that outcome, and some of it, even if they're agreeing with you, it just won't be something that you can relate to. So we don't need to keep turning on ourselves. It's happening more and more that will pick out each other's faults, and I'm thinking, hold on a minute, we're all on the same side. This is exactly what they want. This is the chess game. You can move diagonal, you can move forwards, you can do all of these other moves, but together we can then take down the opposite side of the chessboard, which is the operators and the things we're battling against. So why are we in this point that we can fall out of each other and be so diverted and not working as a collective? It's something that I think it's more powerful if all of us just agree to say some things and go along with each other, and to kind of make sure that we all are singing from the same sheet, even if it's a slightly different part of the message. So you got things like the big step, where I take my hat off to they're walking around from club to club. They don't know what attention they're going to get. They don't know what the outcome's going to be. They're just going out on that day to walk from club A to club B to say their message that they want the sponsorship gone from that football club. They're just getting on with it. They're keeping themselves to themselves. They're getting the message out there. People are noticing it. It's bringing it up in conversation. But then those same group of people might not be the same ones that are there going on about the mobile app games, because that's somebody else's corner, and everyone's doing their bit for the bigger picture. But we don't have to clash along the way just because it doesn't touch you and doesn't affect you. We need to show solidarity. It becomes such a powerful message when we are all pieces on that same board together.
I think that's that's so true. I mean, just this week. I mean, you know about this well, but I was dragged into a bit of a Twitter storm, and I couldn't help but think exactly what you've just said, which is, well, I failed to see this, because if we just zoom out and look at the bigger picture, it's surely more beneficial if we're all working together, as opposed to fragmenting. So I was a bit annoyed, to put it mildly, but we've since settled our differences. The accounts that I'm thinking about, but no, I do agree with you, Danny.
'Cause at the end of the day, to summarize it, you've got to think in the next 1 year, 2 years, history is going to get made, regardless of what we think is going to happen.
Mm.
And new legislation is likely to happen. Advertising likely to be restricted or banned. Kids won't be able to gamble as much. All of this is going to happen once. So if we can make sure we are putting our energy in the right direction, we can make sure we get everything that we need to get to our goals, what we're all wanting, just the better place. If we don't and we miss our moment because we didn't shout loud enough together, then what happens when they come in and they say affordability is £500 a month, max stakes £10 a month, adverts are allowed after 9 p.m. at night, all of these things that could happen just because we got that focused on getting sidetracked rather than just thinking, right, let's do this.
Absolutely. So Danny, I mean, I feel like I've not really asked you any questions about your story. Obviously, it's kind of coming out through our conversation, but I mean, I don't know where to take us, Danny. Where to guide us.
I sound like all I do is rant, don't I? I'm not usually a
No.
ranting kind of person. I just think we just got to get it out there. The more we speak about it, the more it might just make somebody have that thought. So it's just, and along the way, if we all just share our little bits about your story. So like I said, like about going to the bookies on your lunch break, it sounds like nothing to you, but just by telling someone else that's happened, you relate to them and you're going to help somebody else out there. We've all got a huge story each and we've all got little bits. We don't always have to know each other's full story in one go. We've just got to kind of make sure that we keep saying our bits and just catch that next person's attention, that one more person's going to get help. And then slowly but surely we get there.
Absolutely. So, are you okay for another few minutes?
Yeah, no worries.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, just to touch on that then. So, how did you stop gambling? So, for anyone that's listening to the podcast that's maybe thinking, well, how did Danny do it? What tips and advice have you got?
So I tried for a long time to do it myself. I used to send emails off to every operator. I used to go on the gambling commission's site, get a list of license holders, thinking I could do it. It didn't work. More operators opened than you could keep up with. You just couldn't be on top of it. You know, it would take one advert from one other operator and it'd be back to square one. So I used to end up joining different sites every month, then blocking from that one, joining the next one, blocking from that one. So I used to beg my bank to bring out a gambling block because the only way I thought I could stop gambling was by stopping me having a way to do it at a single point. It was too difficult to do so many self-exclusions and everything else. And the moment that I can say I definitively didn't gamble again was when my bank, which is Monzo, brought out the gambling block and I pressed a single toggle button in an app that meant that I would get declined from gambling. I did say to him though, I asked him about cash because cash scares me. If I get given money in a Christmas card, I think, am I going to go and gamble it?
Yeah.
And things like that. So my daily limit for my bank is £20 because I asked them to lower my cash point limit because that's what I call my barber fund, is to get the haircut. That's the only place you need to pay with money.
It's true, to be fair.
No other. I can get on the bus, I can tap my card, I can do it everywhere. So why do I need any more than £20 to get my haircut once a month?
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I was going to say we're definitely moving towards a cashless society, but barbers seems to be one of the only places that still wants cash.
So that's the only time I need cash. And then with having that block on my bank, it gave me all this time to sit back and to start getting things like debts in control. And I then signed up to GamStop and have the Gamban app because all of these tools don't work for the full solution on their own. And I think we a lot of us that look for help try to find a one-stop solution for it, and I don't think that works. I think we have to put hurdles in. So I know that I can't get cash. I know I can't use my debit card. I know I can't register on a site because of that. I know I can't access a site because of an app. And I'm like, all these tiny pieces soon become your big wall in front of you and gives you enough time to think and get past that urge to want to put your next bet on. Because for a lot of us, the urge doesn't go. I see a TV advert and I still think one big spin and I could win the jackpot. Happens all the time. But I know for a fact that for me to gamble, I've got to make a master plan to do it. if I was going to ever do it, I'd have to get cash. I'd have to, and all of it just becomes such a long process that I know I've got enough time to talk myself out of it. And I think we've got to give more respect to the tools and the ways that we can do it. So GamStop, some people can bypass it by going to a foreign site that isn't on their list, but they don't promise you that they can protect the whole world. If someone's going to lie about the date of birth, they might get around it, but they are doing everything they can to protect you from the mainstream, and they're doing their small piece in helping someone not gamble. Then you got Gamban. You've got to put an app on your phone, you've got to do all of this, but that's then just giving you another little hurdle. I just think we put too much emphasis that we need a single tool that does it all, but just give them each the credit, and it can do such a dramatic thing for some people.
For sure. I mean, did you ever get sort of, other sort of counselling or GA or anything like that? Or
I tried going through where you ring up the helpline. I don't want to advertise which helpline it is, where you get sent off to a counsellor from a private company that's that far away from where you work. You've got to book half a day's holiday to go. And then you find out that all you're being told is that the best way to do it is to take a break, put your thoughts in process, and come back to it another day. Doesn't work for me personally, that the whole way of doing it, because that's one way. Since then, I'm now envious of some people and the support they can get from things like the NHS gambling clinic. It's a whole different thing now. You've got people with the right intentions. You've got a service there that's pure job is to protect you. And they're doing the CBT therapy. They're doing everything they can do, and it's there to help people. I think if I was trying to stop today, I would have such a different experience by being able to get that help. I wouldn't have it wouldn't have felt like such a long process to stop gambling, because I would have had a service that I knew was there to do its actual job. And I think we need to all shout out more about the fact that we've got these gambling clinics that are being run by the NHS and starting up. And things are getting there slowly but surely. Some people need more help than others. We've just got to make sure we don't push them down the wrong routes to the wrong services that give the message that isn't the correct one. I'm trying to be as nice as possible in this, because I don't want to name anyone's individually, but yeah.
That's good.
I think it'd be different now. I think anyone who's struggling now, best thing to do is do your research and try and find one of these NHS gambling clinics, and go through the channels where they're there for the right intentions, and they're not there because they've got a bigger goal, or they're not giving you the message that suits you personally.
I spoke to Matt Gaskell in Series 1, and he was absolutely brilliant, just on a personal level. But then, of course, what he's doing with the NHS clinics, and it's still mind-boggling that gambling addiction was only seen sort of as equivalent to drugs and alcohol in 2013 in this country. So it's it's brilliant to see that we're opening so many more. I think Matt said there was 14 in the next 2 or 3 years across the country, which is
I got a chance to visit the Manchester one when it first opened.
Oh, okay.
And it was a really nice experience to walk into somewhere where they had all of these plans, and there were different types of therapy. There was all of these different things they could do for people to suit them, and it wasn't going to be you ring up a phone number, you get told to go to someone for 6 sessions, and you're all good and you're gone again. It wasn't like that. They was there because they needed to help you, and I just think we need services like that for the right intentions.
Yeah. So Danny, what's it like in an NHS clinic? Is it like a doctor's surgery? Is it like a hospital ward? Or could you kind of describe a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's like a doctor's or a hospital ward. It was just a centre where there was obviously different rooms for people that could go for sessions. There was a team of people that were all there because they wanted to be there to help. They was there because they knew it was a service to help people. They wasn't there for any other reason than knowing they're going to get people that are currently in a bad place and need help and support. And it just didn't feel like I thought it would luck, and envious is the wrong word. It's just such a, I don't know how to describe it, but the idea that if that would have been there those few years ago when I needed that help, could I have stopped that bit sooner just by having the right services there and the right message and knowing that I'm there to be protected and not there to be judged or not there to learn coping strategies to come back to gambling in the future. I just think it is like I say, it's something that should be shouted out more. We've got to get people to the right places if they need help. We can all keep pushing about these centres more and the right type of help services, and we can make a huge impact.
For sure. Sorry, I feel a bit bad sort of asking whether it was like a hospital ward or a doctor's, because that makes it sound really clinical. But yeah, I mean, it sounds completely different. Yeah.
At the same time, though, it is like a doctor's or a medical ward. If you break a bone, you need help to get that bone healed. If you've got gambling addiction, you might well need help to get healed and get back on track. It is a condition. It is something that's a mental illness in some ways. You are addicted to something. You'd be addicted to a drug physically. You can be addicted to gambling mentally, and even get some physical side effects. I think it's a fair comparison. You know, do you get what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
It's not a form of entertainment once it becomes an addiction. We shouldn't just kind of make it seem any different to breaking your leg. Some people do it and they need help to get there and get fixed. It's an uphill battle on your own.
For sure. So Danny, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Before we wrap things up, have you got anything else to add that maybe you wished you'd mentioned, or I don't know where people can find you, if you want to mention maybe your social media links or anything else, basically?
Well, yeah, Twitter's my main place. I'll usually go on my little rants now and again about something when I see adverts that come out that aren't giving the right message. I just think we all need to just keep our eyes open, understand what the end goal is, and kind of just think, let's do this now. This is our once in a lifetime chance to change an industry, to make an industry care that by instinct doesn't care. If we miss our moment now and we all get too distracted with everything else, we've got another long process to get back to having this chance ever again. So I am fairly confident we will get new regulations. We will get gambling in the UK changed. And if it changes in the UK, many other countries will follow. Everything we're doing in the UK, you've got to kind of look as well outside the UK. So places like Spain and Italy, and some of their new rules they've brought in quite quickly. And it hasn't took them years of campaigning to get there, or is the same type of attitudes there with people doing it, or are we having a bigger picture in the UK that other countries are watching and seeing the bad impact that the UK industry is causing, and whatever we do here could be not just a UK thing. There might be changes everywhere. It's not just a British problem, it's a problem everywhere. So I think we've got a chance to make a huge difference, and I think it is worth trying to get this done correctly. Put all the effort in you can, target the right sort of message, and the change will happen.
Fantastic. I think it's a really good place to kind of to wrap things up. So yeah, for anyone listening, I'll put Danny's Twitter handle in the show notes. But it's what is it? Go on. Would you like to tell us anyway?
Well, my name, nice and simple, Danny Cheetham.
There we go. Simples. Yeah, I really tried to get the Invisible Addiction on as a Twitter handle, but it's too long, so I had to change it, and it's just now Addict Invisible. So yeah,
still,
but you know,
it does its job. People know exactly where you are, and you get your followers. So
exactly.
But definitely.
Well, Danny, it's been as I say, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for giving up your time and you know, coming on the podcast. And I've really enjoyed it. And to be honest with you, I mean, I'd say this to most guests, but I could have just, you know, just keep rolling on and on and on. And I've got a page full of notes of things to kind of get through, and I think we've only got through like 2 of them. So it's been brilliant.
Not a problem. You gave me a soapbox and I went on my rant, so I'm not always on a rant. I can sometimes tell a joke or two, but there's a moment for it. So thank you for giving me the chance to share my thoughts and how I feel at the moment.
No, that's fine. As I say, next stop, Pie Park Corner. Yeah. Oh dear. All right then, Danny. Well, I'll speak to you soon and take care of yourself.
No worries. Cheers.
It takes a huge amount of bravery to tell your story publicly, so I'd like to say a massive thank you to Danny once again. I could really resonate with Danny's mindset of feeling like you're in control of your gambling. During a gambling addiction, though, it's easy to convince yourself that you don't have a problem, when in reality, things couldn't be further from the truth. It's inspiring to hear that Danny's free from gambling, and inspiring to hear the positive impact he had in campaigning against payday loans. Well done to him. We hope that the current Gambling Act review will be just as comprehensive. So, Danny mentioned how he was addicted to fixed odd betting terminals in bookies. So I'd like to continue the conversation by speaking to another man who's had similar experiences. Let's find out in the next episode of The Invisible Addiction, when I speak to former police officer Colin Bland.